Again, it's a rich thing.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to learn how to easily create graphical user interfaces in Python using PyQt5. Now, PyQt5 uses Qt, which is a framework for graphical user interface development or design. So we're not going to use the core Python module tkinter today. We're going to use a separate framework, the Qt framework, in order to create graphical user interfaces. And this video is going to be split up into two parts. The first part is going to be Python code only, so we're going to create a whole UI using Python code, and in the second part we're then going to look at the QtDesigner, which is an application that allows us to drag and drop and build our graphical user interface just by clicking and dragging and changing the values, and then we can import that into Python and give it some functionality. So this is what we're going to do, and in order to get started we're going to have to install PyQt5 onto our system, and for this all you need to do is you need to open up cmd or a command line of your choice, and you need to say pip install PyQt5 like that. Now that should be enough, but for some reason maybe it won't be enough, and in that case you're just going to have to install Qt itself. Now for me this was enough because I think it installs Qt already, but if for some reason you don't have Qt installed and it doesn't work, just go online and look for Qt5 download, and then you're going to be able to install this onto your system. So this is what you need to do. And once you have done that, you can just go ahead and import from pyqt5.qt widgets, not windows, widgets. We're going to import everything. So all the UI elements that we're going to need. And we're going to start with a very basic structure here. We're going to define a main section. So if name equals underscore underscore main underscore underscore, we're going to call a main function. And we're going to have the main function here, and inside of that main function we're going to design our graphical user interface. And as a starter we're going to say that an app is just going to be a Q application, and usually what we do is we pass an argument vector, as you can see here, the suggestion sys.arg or argv. In this case we can also, if we don't need any arguments, just pass an empty list and it's going to be sufficient. Besides that, we're going to create a window, the window itself of the application. This is going to be a Q widget, so a generalized widget. And basically all we need to do then is we need to say window.show and app.exec underscore, and that's basically the whole application to get a window running. So if I run this now, you're going to see that this is my graphical user interface, but of course we don't have any elements. Now adding elements to it is very simple. We can just go ahead and say label equals QLabel, for example. It's going to be part of the window, and we're going to set the text of the label to hello world, for example. And by just doing that, we already have a graphical user interface with hello world inside. But you can see it's quite small, so if we want to increase the font size, all we need to do is we need to say label.set font, and here we need to pass a so-called Q font. Now in order to be able to use a Q font, you need to install, to import from pyqt5.qtGUI. We're going to use Q font, and we're going to set the font to Q font and Arial and size 16, for example. And we can now rerun this, and you can see it's a little bit larger. We can also move the label, so we can say label.move. We want to move it to the coordinates 50 and 100, for example. And there you go, it's now there. We can also change the geometry of the window. We can say window.setGeometry. And I think we need to specify first the X and Y coordinates of the window, and then the size of the window. So let's say 200 and 300. And there you go. So as you can see, this works. This is a very easy way to create a graphical user interface. All you do is you define a window. You can also, of course, set a title. So set window title, my simple GUI. You set the properties for the window, then you add the UI elements, then you show the window and execute the application. That's all we need to do here. And Besides labels, of course, we have text edits or text boxes, you could say. We have buttons and all that. So let's go ahead and try something else. Let's try a basic application where we have like a label that says press the button below, and then we want to have a button below that we press. Now, before we do all of that, let's first of all get rid of that actually. We want to talk a little bit about layouts, because of course you can just position all the elements manually. You can say, okay, this is the label, move it to that position. This is the button, move it to that position, and so on. You can do that, but it's more convenient to use a layout. And we can start with a basic box layout. So we can say layout equals, and then QV, or actually Q, V is fine, QV box layout, which stands for Q vertical box layout, which means that we're going to stack the elements on top of each other. We can also go with an H box layout, which is horizontal. Then we would set them, we would place them beside each other. But a V box layout is more, it's the better choice in this particular case now. So we're going to say label equals Q label, and it's going to have the text press the button below. Then we're going to have a button, which is going to be a Q push button, press me, and we're going to now add these things to the layout. So we're going to say layout dot add widget, and we're going to add the label first and then the button. And then we need to set the window dot set layout. We need to set the layout of the window to the layout we just created. So if I now run this, you're going to see that I have pressed the button below here and press me. Now I can press that button and nothing's going to happen because we don't have any functionality yet. We don't have this button linked to any function. So if you want to do that, let's first create a basic function. You can call this function whatever you want. I'm going to call it onClicked, so we know what it does or when it's triggered. So we're going to say onClicked, and we're going to just print hello world when this function is triggered. Now we can link that button to that function by just saying button.clicked, which is the event, .connect, and then onClicked as a function. So if I now run this and I click the button, you can see I get hello world down here. Now maybe we don't want to have a console message, maybe we want to have a message box. In this case, we can just change this to a message box. So we can say message equals Q message box, and we can say message.set text hello world, and then message dot exec underscore. There you go. So let's run this, and when I now click the button, you can see that we get a basic hello world prompt. So next, let's go ahead and try to make this a little bit more dynamic. Let's add a text edit so that it doesn't just say anything, it says what I want it to say. So it doesn't say hello world, it says whatever is the content of the text edit, so that we can learn how to interact with the individual elements. So what we do is we add below the label a text box, and we're going to say that this text box is a text edit, so a Q text edit. And actually, I don't think that we need to set any parameters here. So all we're going to do is we're going to add that as well to the layout text box. There you go. So if I run this, you can see we now have this text box here. And all I want to do is when I click that button, I want it to have a message, to show a message box with the content of the text edit. So we need to change that function a little bit. We're going to pass a message, and we're going to set the text to that message and do the same thing. And when we click on the button, we want to have a lambda expression, and the button is going to call the onClicked function with the text box dot to plain text result as a parameter. So to plain text basically just gives us the content of the text box as plain text, and then we pass that to the onClicked function. We call it with that parameter, then it's going to do the same thing with the message box again. And we use a lambda expression because this is a function call and we don't want this function call to happen unless this event is triggered. So let's see if it works. We can run this, and now I can say, hey guys, what's up? Hello world. And now I can say press me. There you go. You can see a message box with the desired content. Now, I personally think that this is already quite easy and quite convenient, but we can take it a step further by using the so-called QtDesigner. This is a software that allows us to create graphical user interfaces by using drag and drop. So probably, if I don't forget it, you will see a link in the description down below to the download. Otherwise, just go to Google and type QtDesigner download. It's nothing too complicated. It's quite simple. So let's go ahead and delete actually almost all of this. And let's create a new main function, which we're going to leave empty for now. Going to pass. And then we're going to also import from PyQt UIC, because this is what we're going to need in order to load the UI file that we create with the designer. So once you have installed the designer, all you need to do is you need to start a new form, and you need to click on main window here as a template. You click on create, and now you can go ahead and design your graphical user interface like that. So it's really, really convenient. You have all the elements here on the left, and you can just drag and drop them in here. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to start with a basic, where are the labels? There you go, with a basic label that says, let me just double click, that says username. Then we're going to have a second one, which says password. And then we're going to have two text edits from here, and we're going, or actually text edit is a little bit too much. Let's go with line edit. We're going to have a line edit here, and we're going to have a second line edit here. And then we're going to have a button, a push button, which is going to, there you go, which is going to say login or something. So the goal here is to make a sample application. We're going to have a basic username, password, login. And if we enter the correct data, we're going to be able to access the UI elements at the bottom here. And those UI elements are going to be just a basic label that says your message. Let's just make this a little bit larger. There you go, your message. Then we're going to have a basic text edit. I'm going to make this a bit larger here. And this text edit is going to be for our text. Maybe let's make this a little bit smaller, the whole UI. There you go. And then we're going to have another button at the bottom that says say it or something like that. Say it. So basically, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a text box with our message and a button that triggers the message box. But in order to access these elements, we're going to have to enter the correct password. And we can also add some menu here. So we can say file and file. And in here, we're going to have the option close to end the application. So now we can resize that, maybe make that a little bit more beautiful by shifting the elements up a little bit. That's a bit too much. There you go. There you go. And there you go. So this is a very basic graphical user interface. You can spend some more time designing if you want to. We can resize that a little bit here and put that to the left a bit. Resize that as well. There you go. And once you have that done, once you're satisfied with your graphical user interface, all you need to do is you need to save it. I'm going to save mine on the desktop as mygui.ui. And this file is what we're going to need now in our project directory. So we're going to go to the desktop and drag it into PyCharm, into the directory that we're currently working in. And as you can see, this is an XML file. So the whole graphical user interface is basically just full of tags, and this is the whole UI. It's going to be parsed then into an actual graphical user interface. And in order to load this into Python, what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new class, which we're going to call myGUI. And it's going to extend from Q main window. And we're going to have a basic constructor, which is going to call the super constructor. So we're going to pass myGUI and self, and we're going to call init. And after that, we're going to just say uic.loadUI, and we're going to provide the path to the graphical user interface file, mygui.ui, like that. We're going to pass self as the second parameter here, and then self.show. Now, actually, this should be enough to be able to run this. So in the main method, we're now going to say app is QApplication with an empty parameter list again. Then window should be my GUI. And then app.exec. I think that should be it. That should be working. Let's run this and see if this works. There you go. You can see that our graphical user interface is now actually real. We can click the buttons. We can go into the message boxes and so on, into the text boxes, and we can also open up this menu. Of course, the functionality is not there yet, and we need to change a couple of things. First of all, we don't want these two things here to be enabled unless we have already entered the right password. So maybe we should go back to the QtDesigner, click on this here, and check off enabled. And the same goes for the button. So we're going to disable this. We're going to set this to false, so to say. And now we're going to save this again. And I think I need to replace this file. So let's delete it and drag it in here again. There you go. Now this time I moved it, or actually I moved it last time as well. So now if I run this, we should not be able to access, as you can see, these two UI elements at the bottom. And in order to make them enabled, we're going to have to enter the right password and username. And this is the functionality that we're going to implement now. And in order to access these UI elements, since they're not defined in Python, we just need to access the individual names that we can find here. For example, this button has the object name push button, so we can access it using push button. This box here is line edit, this box here is line edit _2, and this is text edit, and so on. So this is how we access the individual elements. And in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to say self.pushButton, which is the name of the login button, clicked.connect, and we're going to connect this to self.login, which is a function that we don't have yet. So we're going to define it, self.login. And all we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, if self. What was the name here? Line edit and line edit _2. By the way, you can change these names by just clicking in here. You can also call them username and password if you want to customize them. And I recommend you to do that in an actual project. For now, we're just gonna go with line edit dot text. If that equals neural9, for example, and self dot line edit _2.text equals password, and of course never ever check a password like that, but if that's the case, we're just gonna say that this is correct. So we're going to say self dot, and we have the text edit and the push button _2. So text edit dot enabled, or actually dot set enabled to true, and then push button _2 set enabled to true as well. So this enables that, and otherwise we're just going to have a message box. So else message equals qMessage box message dot set text and we're going to set this to invalid login message.exec. There you go. So at least that part should be working. Let's see if I enter some nonsense here. You can see invalid login, and if I enter the correct data, so neural9 and password, we should be able to see that now this is enabled. So all we need to do now is we need to implement the sayIt function again. So we're going to say self.pushButton _2.clicked.connect self.sayIt, and we need to of course implement that function as well. Define self, or actually sayIt. There you go. I'm gonna pass a message, and all we're going to do is message equals qMessage box and message dot set text going to be message, and then message dot exec, like that. And we want to make this a lambda expression again, because we need to pass a parameter, which is self dot text edit dot to plain text. Like that. So again, let's log in, neural9, password, and log in. And now let's just type something, say it. As you can see, this works. Now what we need to do here is we need to also implement this close, and this should be quite simple. We just need to find the name of it, which is action close. So we go back into PyCharm, self.action_close dot, I think this is not clicked but triggered dot connect. Am I right? Yes. And then we're just gonna say exit with the code 0, which is a lambda again. So, or actually we don't need to do this. We can just pass exit here. Let's see if it works. There you go, works. So the only thing that I would like to change here now is I would like to make the password field an actual password field. And I think this is done somewhere here by just, what was it? By changing the echo mode password. Was it that? Not sure. But I think that should be it. So let's try it out. We're going to save this again. And we're going to replace this again. So we're going to delete that UI file. We're going to drag this here. And we're going to see if it's now a password file. There you go. It's a password file. And it's still going to work. So if I write password in here and neural9 here, the login still works. Everything else works as well. And we can close the window here. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video and bye.